This is Performance Anxiety on the Pantheon Podcast Network, and I'm your host, Mark. Today's guest is a fan of birds. Not really. I don't know. I mean, he's been in 2 bands named after birds, so maybe. Regardless, welcome guitarist Arad Evans to the podcast. I think Arad may be my first Alaskan here. Now, he wasn't born there, but he did grow up there. He tells me what got him into music and what kind of music scene there was in the 1970s and early 80s Anchorage. Arad moved to New York City specifically to play contemporary avant-garde music. Well, he was pretty successful. His first gig was with legendary experimental composer Glenn Branca. In fact, Arad played with Glenn until his passing in 2018. Arad has played in several bands, and he talks about one that was inspired by Captain Beefheart and Alaska. This band, Heroes of Toolik, is so unique. Arad said the premise of it was making a conscious effort to not make a conscious effort. His new band is, well, kind of new, is called the Whimbrels, and the lineup is stellar. In addition to Arad, there's Norman Westberg and Luke Schwartz on guitar, Steve DiBenedetto on drums, and Matt Hunter on bass. Their debut, self-titled album is out and is so catchy. With so many experimental artists in the band, you might think it's an avant-garde album, but it's wonderfully accessible, no matter if you like experimental music or not. Check it out on Dromedary Records, follow the Whimbrels on social media, and keep an eye out for live dates. Follow us at Performance ANX on socials, grab our merch at performanceanx.threadless.com, send money through ko-fi.com/performanceanxiety. And now I hope you enjoy this chat with Arad Evans of the Whimbrels on Performance Anxiety on the Pantheon Podcast Network.
Hi, everybody. This is Arad Evans, and I'm in the Whimbrels. We have our new record out. Is released June 27. It's the self-titled The Whimbrels on Dromedary Records. It's going to appear on vinyl, CD, all digital channels. And I'm having the pleasure of speaking to you on the podcast Performance Anxiety with Mark Shea, and I'm very grateful to have been invited to speak.
Okay, so the first question I have is, how do I actually pronounce your first name?
I usually say Arad.
Arad, okay. 'Cause I listened to a podcast you were on, and I heard like 2 people pronounce it 3 different ways. So I was like,
I know.
let me just ask. So I get it with my last name, but so I try to be sensitive to that stuff. So
Yeah, it makes me wonder. It's my great grandfather's name.
Oh, really?
And I wish I could ask him or people who knew him how he got on back in the early 1900s, late 1800s with that name.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's been, unless people's ears have changed, he must have been as scattershot as I get it.
Now, is there a continuous Arad, or is it you were named after him and it's just you two?
It's just us.
Oh, man, okay.
Great-great-grandfather.
Wow.
And, obviously never met him or anybody who had met him. So,
yeah, that's going back.
Yeah.
Thank you again for hopping on with me. The album, I don't want to say, because seeing who's in it, I can't say I'm surprised it was great or it was a pleasant surprise. I knew it was going to be amazing. I didn't know how catchy it was going to be. I was thinking more along the lines of maybe what Norman usually does, like the Swans or his ambient stuff. I didn't expect it to be as catchy and hooky as it is.
Well, that's interesting that you say that. I never thought of it as hooky in specifically, but now that you say that, thinking back, you have a point. I sort of reared musically in weird music. I came to New York in the early 80s to play contemporary, really when I was starting out, classical uptown contemporary avant-garde music.
Okay.
And that's, I went to a weird hippie high school before that where we actually did sit around and listen to John Cage and argue.
Oh, wow.
So, I come at it, and then I played with Glenn it was really my first big gig when I got to New York was I got in Glenn's band almost immediately. It would have been 84. And that's some pretty severe music, particularly back then.
Oh, yeah.
I told him the kind of music I was playing, and he was, when he was interviewing me for that, the story is I got to New York and I opened the Village Voice to try to find an apartment. And there was this ad that said, wanted for U.S. and European tour, must play two of the following. And I think it was strings, keyboard, guitar, percussion, woodwinds maybe. And I said, well, I can play guitar and I can at least claim keyboard. And what's the worst that could happen? I get to meet Glenn Branca.
Yeah.
And so he called me in, and so this is where I got off on this. He was satisfied that, I had the sort of the musical sensibility for it. He was just concerned that I would find it too appallingly loud that I just go running in the room the first time they actually hit it. And I assured him that I'd played in a bunch of bar bands and I was fine. And so that was that. But that was some pretty severe music. I would say that over the decades now, I guess I have to say, I've been drifting more to the inside because the music is still pretty peculiar. But I don't think that weird music has to be not fun. I don't think it has to be not sort of banging and have some of that joy that rock and roll has. There's no reason why not. There's nothing inherent in the concept of being avant-garde or weird, or however you want to phrase it. Include access to wanting to dance, just getting your rocks off, listening to a group hammer it out.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, one of my favorite things I will go back to all the time is Band of Susan's version of Rhys Chatham's Guitar Trio.
Listening to it last night.
Oh, that's awesome. It's one of my favorite things they've done. I mean, the whole Here Comes Success album is amazing, but their version of Guitar Trio, I'll just put that on. I'll drive to that. That just gets me going. I love that. All right, so before you moved to New York, I kind of want to find out how you got into music in the first place. Did I hear this right? You grew up in Alaska?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Oh my God! So is that where you were born and raised, or is it you move up there?
It's a weird story, and I don't know how long we're going here.
As long as it takes, man.
In the early '60s, my dad was an attorney in downtown Manhattan, and it was a time when young professionals were fleeing the city, and they would move out to places like New Jersey or Connecticut. My dad got in his head he's going to move the family out to Alaska. So in '66, he picked us up and we moved to Alaska and started a little practice there. And, retired after 60 years, one of the senior guys in the bar up there, of course.
Oh, my gosh.
And so I grew up in a non-musical family sort of in the 60s in Alaska. And a lot of the culture is reflected, we read about Woodstock in the paper. I was a pretty little kid at the time, just to be clear about this. I was like 9 or something. And of course, everything gets up to a place like that a couple of years late in terms of sort of art and pop sensibility and whatnot.
Right.
So I got enamored of playing acoustic guitar because that was really all I had any access to. And it looked pretty simple. You got these chord diagrams, you put your fingers there and you're good.
Right.
It turned out to be a little trickier than that. But so I was strumming along and, I buying books. I had a Bob Dylan book. I had a great old record of Burl Ives put out by the Library of Congress that was an encyclopedia of 18th and 17th century American folk music, and I learned a lot of those songs.
Oh, wow.
Mississippi John Hurt was a big thing, was playing that kind of stuff. But I was really interested in unusual music, and there was no way to hear anything back then. I mean, you couldn't go into a shop and asked in Anchorage in 1972 and asked for a recommendation.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors.
So I forget the name of it. I think it was OP magazine might have been it. The zines, and I would look in the back, and find titles that looked like they might be cool, and I had no freaking idea what they sounded like, and bugged my dad for a check for $3.50 and put it in an envelope and mail away from it. And in 4 weeks, a package would come.
Right.
One of the things was that just by luck that I ordered was, Here Come the Warm Jets, for instance.
Oh, cool.
And I played that record just out. I played that until it was completely worn out. And then I was listening to mainstream rock and roll. By 1980, we were just getting up to sort of spandex and big hair. And that was when I started going outside to college and got really more different stuff. Brought some of it back, and I had a little punk band that went over big in 1981 in Anchorage because nobody knew what we were doing. They had no idea what it was. They knew that we were wearing spandex and had big hair, and it was fun. So anyway, that's how I got into playing loud music.
Wow! What was the scene like there? Was there much of a scene, places to play?
Well, when I was first sort of starting to play out, the first $12 I ever made playing music was 1973, and it was acoustic guitar covers, sitting on a stool type thing. I was only 13.
Oh. Okay.
There was a restaurant that would let me drink beer out of the fridge if I would just keep playing, and so that was fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I say, so it was very crunchy granola, because the culture was really shaped by what was going on outside, and the access to it was all the big commercial entertainment stuff. It was a lot of the big bands that you would expect to have heard. People were grooving to Little Feat and listening to Eric Clapton and blues and whatnot. Allman Brothers was a big thing. It was sort of like small town shit kickery stuff that like you'd expect at that period of time. Was very downstream. One of the weird things about it was that as a person who's trying to learn to be a musician and to practice an art as a musician, you really had no access to that music because it was all big. It was all expensive to do. And there were rock bands, but they were mostly bar bands that had been flown up from Seattle.
Ah, okay.
So really the only thing that you could sort of pick up an instrument and do with your friends was acoustic sort of folk pop music, which I'm not super enamored of anymore. Some of it was pretty sticky and ghastly, but, you could at least do it. You could make music with your friends and for your friends. And you really didn't, until we started to get, so the ripples of punk start to make their way up there. And, I got outside and started to see, by outside, that's what Alaskans mean when they say not Alaska. Right. And brought back some stuff from school. All of a sudden, all you actually needed was an amp and an electric guitar and a chord. You didn't need any boxes, and whack away, and you could make rock and roll. You didn't have to be the Allman Brothers. You didn't have to be by late 70s. It was all Fleetwood Mac made it even worse, like the Eagles and all those things. You couldn't just set up with your friends and sound like that.
Right.
It was just completely inaccessible. So for me, it was a transition from the Leo Kottke type fancy finger picking stuff that I finally worked my way up to playing hard, loud, and fast. And then on top of that, I was going to this crazy high school and ordering records. And so by the time I got back to New York, which felt like a long sort of circuitous route from when my dad had moved us up there when I was 6, I answered an ad in the Village Voice, and all the pieces fell in place. It was great.
Wow. So you mentioned going to schools. When was when was the moment that you decided that music was your life? Music was what you're going to do? Or was there a moment? I mean, was it when you picked up the guitar? Was that it?
I spent a couple of months working a job in a bookstore. This was when school was out, and staying in a friend's apartment across the street from Lincoln Center. And when I go down the subway, all these, and not really having a great time, but I figured I had to have a job, right? And that's sort of what it's about. Coming up out of the subway were all these kids going to Juilliard. They were going to go play music all day. I was going to work in a bookstore all day so I could play music for an hour or so at night. And I said, wait a second, they're just like me. Why can't I do that? It turns out they weren't just like me. They're really hard.
Right.
But I didn't know that at the time.
Right.
So I decided to get serious about it. And I went to music conservatory and then came back to New York and went to graduate school, to Manhattan School.
Okay, so was it school that brought you back to New York?
Well, no, it was contemporary music. And
Okay.
Graduate school was something to do while I was, and then I started playing and touring almost immediately I got back, which complicated my graduate studies quite a bit, but I managed to get.
Oh, nice. Was Glenn Branca's ensemble? I mean, was that the first, I guess, real professional thing? Was it one of the first things you did in New York? One of the first bands or groups you were a part of, or were there more before that?
No, that was one of the first things. I was literally, I was just here, a couple of months, and I think I must have got done with school, and I was in San Francisco at the conservatory out there. And I must have got done with school in May. I got a summer sublet in June, and by that September, I was on a plane to Austria with Glenn.
Wow!
Like, this was easy. Why doesn't everybody?
Why didn't you just play with Glenn Branca?
I didn't know how lucky I was, and but I was really, really lucky.
And you stayed with him forever until he passed, right?
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Consider him, he was a great friend, and he was a great composer. What he really was, though, is one of these figures who's sort of moved the guitar forward as an instrument. I think there are just maybe a handful people, because it's such a new instrument, really.
Yeah, it is.
In the broad scheme of things, classical guitar, which I studied for many years, you have people like Segovia, which really changed the way people think about the instrument. You have great pianists like Liszt, changed the way people think of, and Beethoven changed the way people think about the piano.
Yeah.
There are aspects of the electric guitar which are still unexplored and developed, and there are people who out there doing it which have left a huge stamp on how people listen to the instrument. Glenn is a towering figure with respect to that, and there's not very many people that are like that. I mean, that's Paul.
Yeah. Hendrix. Yeah.
Who really, as I say, changed the way people approach the guitar as a listener and as a player. And a lot of it has to do with the idea that it's the sonorities and timbres that you can get out of an electric guitar as much as the notes and the melodies and the rhythms. So you see a player like Norman or Robert Poss, both of which, one point out, have been Whimbrels.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize Robert had been. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'll get to that. These guys who are exploring it, they're not doing electronic music. They're not just using the guitar as a tone generator. They're actually using the sounds, the sonorities and textures you get from a metal string vibrating in a magnetic field cranked through a blistering loud amp. And they're making art. They're the descendants, the inheritors of these other people that we've been talking about. But that's why I value both those guys' music making so highly. I myself am not like that. I'm much more of a note melody type guy. I consider myself in my daydreams and best days more of a Tom Verlaine, Robert Quine guitar player.
Oh, yeah, well, hey. Those, yeah, exactly. Amazing players. But, so I've got one, before we move on, I do have a question for you. We talked a little bit about, what you were into, the folky stuff and the punk stuff, and then you're playing with Glenn. How did you get into the experimental stuff to find Glenn and play avant-garde or experimental music? Was there somebody that got you into it, or is it something that you just started doing on your own?
Well, I tried to keep my ears open. That winter when I was working in the bookstore, I was still pretty fresh out of Alaska at that point. It was at 79, 80 maybe. And this is before I'd gone to San Francisco and then come back to New York.
Okay.
And it seems so nerdy now, but I would get the Village Voice. And, because I came from a place where there was no music. There was nothing cool to go hear. Big bands would come up at that period of time. Some big bands would come to Anchorage, and everybody would go completely bananas. I think that one of the big ones was Grand Funk Railroad. People went completely bonkers over Grand Funk Railroad.
Oh yeah. Now
maybe that has some retro cred, but I was pretty sick of it, and and it was I deprecate this idea that New York was so amazing in the early 80s, and it's not anymore. But it is the case that there was some good stuff going on. So I went out, a lot. I didn't drink or party or anything. I'd go by myself and, pay the admission and just stand there and watch. I saw Sun Ra 2 or 3 times at the Squat Theater.
Oh wow.
By that old Quonset hut.
Yeah. Esther Balin, she's been on the podcast.
Yeah, Sonic Youth was kicking around. You see there. So I remember looking at it, going, I'd never heard of them. They weren't famous. I said, that's a good name for a band. I'll go check those guys. And,
that's awesome.
There's Cecil Taylor, and I kept a little log of each. I write my own little review of each performance.
Oh, cool.
It's not clear to me why I did that, but it was a good education. I got some cool posters too. I still have them.
Oh, that's awesome. Do you still have the book with your reviews?
That I don't have. I could kill myself, but I don't have. Really,
that would be awesome, man.
An early Lounge Lizards gig at Haraz.
Oh, man.
This is how naive I was. Back then in New York, headliners didn't come on before midnight. It was late. Everybody understood it was going to be late. Everybody except for a kid from Alaska.
Right.
So the flyer would say, doors at 10 or something like that. So I remember showing up at Haraz with, just enough money to get in. I walk in. There's nobody in the place. I mean, they're just setting up the chairs.
Oh, wow.
And I don't have any money I can't even drink. I don't have any dough. And it's obvious that nothing is going to start for hours. And I go to the door guy and say, can I go out and come back in? No.
Yeah.
So I'm just fucking stuck in there.
Oh, yeah.
And, but yeah, in New York back then, live shows didn't really get rocking till well after midnight.
Man.
And the theory that people have said is that it was cheap to live, so nobody had jobs. Anybody who was out to see cool shows and living the life, they didn't need to work, so they didn't need to get up in the morning, so they could, nap.
That makes sense. Oh yeah, now forget it. Oh.
So anyway, I picked up a lot there. I was studying music and studying contemporary music. The composer John Adams was my freshman advisor at the San Francisco Conservatory.
Oh, cool.
So I met some interesting and cool people and rubbed shoulders with some amazing players and, got my education doing it. And so when I saw Glenn's ad, there was no question, but I was going to call.
Had you seen him play live and then, or was it just?
I had not. A friend of mine at school had gotten up a band that was suspiciously, had seen him and got together a band that was suspiciously like I Know what Glenn was doing, and he wouldn't stop talking about Glenn. And that's how I knew what it was, because I played in this guy's little ensemble. When they cranked up the first rehearsal, I realized that what we'd been doing was not exactly the same.
Oh man, that had to be an incredible feeling, though. Jeez.
Oh, it was amazing. Yeah, it was really something.
So you played with him from that point until he passed, and he actually wrote a song for you, "The Smoke," guitar concerto for Arad Evans. That's amazing to me. I mean, I can't honestly, that would freak me out a bit. Someone of this stature writing something for me, because I know that if I had to play that, I would just be so self-conscious, I would just jack it up completely. So did he tell you he was writing that, or did he just come up surprised you one day with it?
It didn't work. No, it was commissioned by a number of people who were friends of mine and friends of the ensemble. And, Glenn was pleased at the idea that people were commissioning for him for stuff. He was always short of money.
Yeah. I can imagine. I mean, his stuff isn't not always easily accessible. Mm-hmm. So I can imagine that's got to wreak havoc on your finances sometimes. It
was a very severe, dedicated, artist and a garret guy.
Exactly, an artist, yeah.
He cut absolutely no corners with his career or his music, not even one a little bit. Man. He was all in, and that can take a toll. So anyway, some people got together and put together some money, commissioned that work. So yeah, I knew it was coming. Okay. I'd been working with Glenn for a long, long time at that point, so that part wasn't quite so. It didn't overawe me to do that, but to stand up there with a solo line, and you're turned up so that you are distinctly louder than the entire Glenn Branca ensemble, and you're out by yourself with this one line in front of a whole lot of people. That was there. So I practiced a lot to get that. All right, so you've also played with some amazing band, like Reese Chatham. You've played with it. Are the players in avant-garde, experimental? I don't even want to say genre. Are there a lot of you guys around to be playing with a bunch of different people, or is it a small group of people that play? I don't want to say rotate, but that I see a lot of the same players playing with a lot of the same people. And then they shoot off into smaller bands. So I'm just wondering if it's a large community or a very smaller, more close-knit community of avant-garde players. Well, the word that I was thinking of as you were asking the question is community. I think it's a fairly permeable community. Okay. I think with the sort of my generation of players, I'm younger than either Glenn or Reese, or even some of the people I still play with, and I'm not that young. We kind of came up in what used to be called the downtown new music scene. Sort of East Village oriented people who were making odd music, the whole no wave generation. Right. Happened and came and went quick, and sort of right before I arrived in New York City, I was picking up the detritus from Glenn and Reese. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. So, there were people who sort of knew each other and called each other, but there were always people coming in. So I wouldn't say it was all that tight-knit. I think I'm one of only two people that have played with both Reese or certainly that toured with both Reese and Glenn. Oh, wow. I didn't realize that. Okay. I was, for some reason, maybe it's just because I've spoken with a lot of Band of Susan's people, and they were all on the side of the fence. That's true. That is true. Yeah. None of them were ever on the Branca side, I don't think. Ernie Brooks claims to have played with Glenn, but he didn't do it for very long, if he did. And I never played with Glenn with him, but I did tour with Ernie in the Chatham band. Okay. Do you see newer composers and people coming up to challenge things like Reese and Glenn did? Are there younger composers coming up following in their footsteps or forging their new ground? It's a perfectly fair question. I sort of shy away from it because I hate to come off curmudgeonly, and I will also say that one's human, and you kind of know that you listen to the people that you know to listen to. But I wouldn't say that I'm really fully on top of everything that's going on. That's fair. But I will say that some of those guys came up with some pretty startling stuff, particularly when it comes to really reinventing the sound and concentrating on the sound of electric guitar in particular. I don't know that I hear it that same way now.
Okay.
And they're doing something that's so cool that they're looking back at me and saying, "Grandpa, you just don't get it."
Yeah.
And that could easily be the case. And in all humility, who the hell knows? I don't. But if you ask me to point to somebody who's sort of as vital as that, I mean, they're out there, but I'm not sure I know of it. And I do know people who, and I don't endorse this, and I just distinguish myself from this view, who go around saying, "Where are the composers lately?" I mean, there are people who say that. I can't believe that's right. People are people, and there are smart people and artistically insightful people with every generation. And I resist the idea that there was some golden age that we're missing now. I will tell you that they may not be in New York City.
Okay.
Because and I'm a New York musician, so if I'm not tripping over the most amazing new thing, maybe it's because it's happening somewhere else right now.
Yeah, and with there's so much happening online, they don't have to be there.
No, they don't. I do think there's a lot to be said for in music in particular. If you're going to do it's like an ensemble playing, you got to be around people. You got to be around people, and you pick stuff up and learn from stuff. Or at least I did.
Yeah.
From the contemporaries that you play with. But it's hardly news. You don't need to hear me say it, but the town's too expensive.
Yeah.
For people to be able to get Arthur Russell living in a loft where he can get up in the morning and work on his art. It just doesn't happen anymore because that loft is worth millions of dollars now.
Yeah. Yeah, like you said, it was cheap back in the 70s, 80s. You could do that stuff, and you can't now. Mm-hmm. So, besides Glenn, you've also done some amazing stuff outside of the ensemble, like Heroes of Toolik.
Oh, thank you for mentioning Heroes. Good old Heroes, yes.
That is a cool band. I didn't know too much about it until I started doing research for you and found the band, and I'm like, this is really cool. And it's not a guitar, bass, drum setup. I mean, it's guitar, violin, trombone, drums. It's different, and it sounds so new. It's not like a somebody trying to do a swing revival or a country western. It's rock with a change. I mean, with a horn twist, and it's not like when you pull trombones out or trumpets and play ska. I mean, it's really thoughtful music, hard rock music with different instruments, and I think that's why I'm really drawn to it. I'm almost a little speechless trying to describe it to everybody. I'm gonna have to put a clip in so everybody can listen. How did that band come together?
Well, the first seeds of that were a long time ago, because it was when they first reissued all of Captain Beefheart on CD.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I put that stuff on, and I'm hearing these trombones and the xylophones going off. And yet that, it rocks. It's fun, and it's propulsive. It's super smart. I mean,
yeah.
Beefheart had more brains than were probably good for him. But that trombone guitar idea was in a rock context was really in my head. I had a short-lived band called Monster Trucks for a little while that had that, and that didn't last that long.
That's a great name, though.
Thanks. There was a little period there when bands were called Monster This, Monster That, and so we were Monster Trucks.
I like it.
So then I started Heroes of Toolik, and thank you for mentioning that. We had 2 full lengths and a single that we put out self-released, and people liked it. We got respect. We got some nice press. That didn't reach a wide audience, that's for sure. But the thing about that band was it was really sort of one of my first big efforts of my own, as opposed to being a side band.
Okay.
And I sort of made a conscious effort not to make a conscious effort. That is to say, I was not trying to aim at anything. I was just trying to do exactly what I wanted.
Oh, okay.
So it wasn't meant to be indie. So there's some spots where it gets a little indie. And I said to myself, yikes, it's getting a little indie here. And then I said, oh, wait, you can't say that because you're not aiming. So you just, if that's what you wrote, that's what you wrote. So there's this one tune on there that I wrote the day Beefheart died called F String.
Jimmy was nervous, he was skating too. Tried to teach his sister that she lame too. His sister had a lover, gave her all that he knew. Well, he didn't say much, but what he said was true.
It's on the first record.
Okay.
And, it's got very Beefhearty sounds to it. It's meant to. It's an homage to Beefheart. Other things. There's this one piece is kind of a long minimalist instrumental.
Okay.
The lineup was the original bass player was Matt Hunter, who's now playing in Whimbrels.
Right, yeah.
Peter Zumo, and this is where being a downtown musician sideman starts to pay off, is that I just knew these people. Peter Zumo from the Lounge Lizards played trombone for us, and he was introduced to me by Ben Neal, who's the mutant trumpet guy.
Right,
He's been around for a long time, and I played Ben's band years gone by. And we had an accordion player to start.
Oh, wow.
Fill out the middle kind of thing. And and I was playing guitar, and that's the first record. And it's pretty song driven. Some instrumental stuff are, a little bit more outside, but it's mostly pretty song driven. And people really liked it. People who took the time to listen to it.
I thought it was cool.
There's a kid out in Portland who really liked it, and we got a little flurry of plays coming out of Portland. It was like as hip as we probably ever got, because all the kids in Portland were grooving to Heroes of Toolik, but it was he couldn't change the world for us.
Right.
So then we had a bit of a lineup change, and of note, Ernie Brooks from the Modern Lovers and Chris Spedding and any number of things, who I'd met at the Chatham Band, as I mentioned, came to play bass, and Billy Ficca from Television came and played drums.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And the trombone was replaced with, not the trombone, the accordion was replaced with this fabulous Appalachian old-time fiddler, Jennifer Coates. And she's amazing, and she started writing for the band, also singing. That's what we did the second record, which I'm very proud of. I think it's a really good record. I mean, in terms of the sort of level of quality and songwriting, and playing, and thought and work. And that, it's another, we got a lot of very complimentary press, not a lot of other attention.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
It's some great gigs. That's all I can say. Missed it. It's your loss.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I saw some of the live, I guess a couple live performances on YouTube. And the one that I really liked was, I don't even know if I'm going to try to pronounce this. It starts with a Quinn Kunks?
Quinn Kunks.
Yes. Like that a lot. That was really cool.
Yeah. Well, that's sort of the third version of Heroes of Toolik, which is still extant. We went acoustic, parted ways with, amicably, I hasten to say, with Billy and Ernie. My great friend Mappa Elliott came in, is playing stand-up bass. Michael Evans, a stalwart of the downtown. That was a real classic downtown New York musician who sadly passed away during the pandemic. He's the percussionist.
Oh, okay.
I miss him. He was a great guy. Hard to think of New York downtown music the same way without him. And John Speck on trombone, and I'm playing acoustic guitar, and of course we have Jennifer playing the fiddle. And now the percussionist is a tabla player. Our trombone player, who is no longer Peter Zumo, moved to New Jersey with a family, so he wasn't as available. And so we're four-piece with tabla, which goes great with Appalachian fiddle, by the way. I don't know if you would have thought of that.
I would not have, but man.
And I play a little banjo, so I do like clawhammer banjo.
Oh, nice.
With tabla and the violin. It's pretty cool.
That sounds amazing.
So we've been doing some stuff around with that when the Whimbrels aren't too busy.
Okay. So
Toolik. I love that band, and it's still out there.
So how did you come up with the name? Because that sounds like an Alaskan name.
It is.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it is Inuit for loon. A Toolik is a loon.
Oh, so are you a bird guy then?
I'm kind of a bird guy, but also I spent some summers working up in the bush way up north, and there's a lake, a Toolik Lake.
Oh, okay.
And on this lake is a bunch of biologists studying the tundra and the wildlife, and I bet swatting mosquitoes. I was talking to my brother, who's also spent a lot of time. I said, God, I'd love to bring a band in there. I bet they'd really love to. We'd be big heroes. And my brother says, Evans, you want to be a hero of Toolik? Just bring beer. And, so that's how the band name. We've had very little contact. There was one person who actually had been at the camp, as you know, I've met. But so yeah, Toolik is loon in Inuit. Whimbrels is a bird.
So the Whimbrels, yeah. So when did the Whimbrels begin? Because you just mentioned early on that Robert Poss, who's been on the podcast several times now, has been a Whimbrel. So when did this whole outfit start?
There was a short. I was looking for something louder and rawer than Heroes of Toolik.
Okay.
And something to blow the cobwebs off a little bit. And I still wanted to write for it. I wanted to do this compositional thing that I like to do, but in a song format, but to bang it out a little bit, to actually rock. So I called Ernie. He played bass, and Robert had what I think of now as the distortion chair in the Whimbrels. We played Hank's Saloon and a couple other shows. It was pretty fun. We weren't taking it all that seriously, and then the pandemic came and shut everything down.
Yeah.
So we got to start it up again. Robert's now moved to Boston, as I think you probably know, because I saw you interviewed him on this podcast not so long ago.
Yeah.
And Matt was available. Matt Hunter, so a long and storied career. He'd be a great guy for you to interview. He's got some excellent war stories.
I would love to speak with him.
He's from New Radiant Storm King, played with Jay Mascis, Silver Juice, that whole Northampton, Connecticut River Valley scene.
That's amazing.
Playing bass. And what he brings to it, a kind of propulsive indie rock sensibility to it, which really changes it more than you'd think, because it's not all dual avant-garde men like me and Norman necessarily.
Right.
Bass is melodic and hooky in its own right.
Oh yeah.
And then Norman Westberg, who's another old pal from East Village days, I called him up. He said yes, which was a daylight miracle. It's not a miracle that you say yes, because he's a hell of a sweet guy, and he loves to. But lucky for me.
Yeah. I was lucky enough he agreed to do the podcast about a year or so ago, and I love that guy. So he's so sweet.
Yeah, he's a very, very nice guy. And a really unique voice with the guitar.
Yeah.
And then there's a third guitarist, Luke Schwartz, who was sort of one of the later hires in the whole Glenn Branca thing. And this was in a period when Glenn started, he was hiring really basic rock guys.
Okay.
And part of his thing was he had an art sensibility, and he was writing compositions, and he was working with people who were essentially unschooled rock musicians, great musicians. And I'm not saying unschooled in any disparaging sense. I mean, they were great musicians, but they didn't read. They didn't. You had to rehearse them. You had to show them.
Pretty raw in that sense, I guess, maybe.
Yeah, and that's what gave the music, a lot of his character. Later in his career, he found that he could take people who had sort of more technical background musically, but could still play like that. Okay. And I was maybe the first one, an early forerunner of it. But Luke also, he's a very trained and skilled musician, a true shredder as a soloist.
Cool.
Anyway, so he's sort of the third man in the guitar front for the Whimbrels. And so I think that Norman and I sort of complement each other's style. I come up with some arrangements of stuff that is really useful because of the counterpoint that we're doing, to have a third guitar player who knows what he's doing. Yeah. And that's kind of the Whimbrels for you. Okay.
You're saying that the band technically started before the pandemic, but you're just releasing the debut album. Is this all new material, or some of this date back to those early days? Or is it some of them have transformed?
There's only one song on the album, I think, that predates the pandemic, and that is Scream for Me, which actually goes back to college days. I wrote that in the 80s.
Oh, really?
Bleeding heart, love empty head, it's made that way. When I get you all alone, when I've got you on my own, there's one thing you do for me. There's one thing that I really need. Scream for me. Scream for me. Scream for me.
It's one of the only songs I ever wrote that bands that I don't know have covered. Yeah.
Really?
Kind of a compliment. I like that.
That's wild.
I take a lot of, I hope, warranted pride in my songwriting. I certainly put a lot of effort into it. And so I really like the idea that the songs would have, a life and a career outside of just my own playing of them.
Makes
so
sense.
I'm always pleased with that Scream for Me, which, by the way, let me plug, has just been debuted in a really cool video by the cinematographer Kevin Jones. It's up on the Dromedary website, and I recommend it.
Oh, cool. I'll definitely check that out. So that's one of the ones I wrote that I like it because it starts with this like crazy buzzsaw sound. It's insane. And it just, the end gets a little hypnotic, which I really, really like that stuff. Like I mentioned with, Guitar Trio early on, that's one of the reasons why I like that. It gets kind of hypnotic.
That song kills live.
I bet.
Volume, and you get all three guitars doing that kind of shimmering cross rhythms to each other. It's a great song, and you can dance to it.
You know what? You're right. The album starts off with "She's the Leader," which I love. I mean, when we mentioned earlier the catchy riffs, that's one of the first ones that comes to mind.
3 days later, when we emerged, the machine was waiting for me. Bright shaped metal, just like they promised. We gathered round, no warmth from this white spark, no warmth from this white spark.
Love the way it ends, because I guess like around the 3-minute mark or so, you get this just like spasm of feedback, which I absolutely love, and then noise, and it's just, I love that kind of stuff. Well, I mean, I liking Band of Susans and some of this, it kind of reminds me a little bit of that, where it's got controlled feedback, noise. That's the kind of stuff I love. And for some reason that gets me in the right in the feels there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's Norman. That's what Norman brings, is that it's just gorgeous soaring feedback solo.
Yeah.
Thing. And I like his solo stuff a lot, but I really like it when he solos with a rock band. And then in that part that you're mentioning, Luke and I are sort of doing a choir, a counterpoint thing that, it's got the stamp of Glenn or Reese on it to support Norma's solo, and that's sort of what makes that kind of special.
It's an amazing track. The whole thing is like I said, you don't often get songs that are noisy like that, but are also catchy and stick in your head. I love it. Monarchs is also another one that's ridiculously catchy. I love that bouncy bass line throughout the whole song. That is brilliant. I love that song.
That's Matt's song. That's a great song. Got 2 songs on this record, and they're really standouts.
Cool.
I think it gives a lot of really extra depth to the whole record that we have. Some of the Matt contributing. Luke says he's got one in his bag that he keeps threatening to pull out, and I really encourage that. I started the band as a sort of a vehicle for the things I was trying to write and hear, but you don't want to be dogmatic about that stuff. When people with this caliber have stuff they want to do, you got to say yes. I should plug to Matt's got a band called Matt Hunter and the Dusty Fate, and I happen to be a Dusty Fate, I'm proud to say.
Nice.
And he's got a record that's online also it's also out on Dromedary.
Oh, okay. Awesome. I saw that. I haven't had a chance to check that out yet, but I will definitely have to after editing this down. So maybe I'll sneak a little bit of his stuff in there too.
I'm gonna steal the whole of your reindeer soul.
Well, you can play Monarchs, and then you will be.
There you go. But my favorite on the album is Four Moons of Galileo.
Oh, dude. Oh, I'm so happy to hear you say that.
I absolutely love the way that it's a 4-part song in 8 minutes, which, 8 minutes sounds like it's a lot, but if you have a 4-part song, that's not a whole lot of time. And it moves so smoothly through each part. I love it. It's absolutely my favorite on the album.
I'm really, really proud of it, frankly. It recorded so well. We got lucky in sort of hitting our marks. And it's the sort of thing that it plays a little different every time you do it, because the timings are all different. The beginning, for instance, there's that sort of choir of guitars that it starts with.
Yes.
Each guitar moves down a scale. You move when you feel like it. If you like the way the chord sounds, don't move. If you feel time to move on, move. Good doesn't necessarily mean pretty, and you can only go down, you can't go up.
Oh, wow. Oh, that is awesome.
That's how you play. That's the score for that part of the piece.
Oh, I love that. I'm going to have to listen to it again now, and just now I'll be thinking about that and listening for it. So that brings up the next thought that I had is so you mentioned it's different each time you play it. Are you guys going to be playing this outside of New York? Are you going to be playing it, supporting it with a tour at all or anything like that?
The answer to that question is yes.
All right. It makes me wish I lived a little closer because I'm outside of DC. I would love to hear, particularly Four Moons of Galileo live. But if you guys ever come down to DC, I will have to be there.
Oh, great. We'd love to.
So I guess the last question I've got is as far as the songwriting is concerned. So, you're the composer. Does everybody bring in parts for the songs? Does everybody have a say in it? Or is it basically, here's the song, this is what I want you to do, and then, live we can play around with it, but when we're recording, this is what I want you to do?
I usually come in with pretty well-formed ideas about how I think the song ought to be realized. People have ideas, or they just don't want to do it that way. They want to do it some other way.
Right.
And, they're usually better. We're all friends. We've all known each other for a really, really long time. So there's a lot of trust in the band. Norman asked me what he was supposed to do on this one song, and I told him, we usually do better if you just make something up yourself. And then so that worked out. But I think on the whole, the songs are when somebody brings it in, they've got an idea about what everybody's supposed to do, and it evolves from there. Okay,
awesome. Well, what is the best way for people to find the album? Is it going to be on Bandcamp? Are there going to be physical releases at all?
Yeah, it's coming out on vinyl. In fact, it came today. Here it is.
Oh, nice.
I'm so pleased. It looks great. It's got the Whimbrel right up front, proud.
Yes.
So it's going to be vinyl and CD, and of course on all digital formats and avenues or channels. It's being released by Dromedary Records. It's out. Orders are available on the Dromedary website. Dromedary, like the camel.
Right. Okay.
And Dromedary, I understand, has pretty good distribution, so it should be in your more discerning record stores in this part of the country, at least, in not too long. Excellent.
Is there a website or social media presence where people can follow you to see what you're doing?
Yeah, we have the Whimbrels.com, and then Insta, Facebook. We'll be branching out to less conventional ones.
Okay.
But we have the normal socials we're up on.
Okay.
That generally trot out band news there, such as we've got 2 nicely done videos out now to support this record, and they're both up on the Dromedary website.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, you just mentioned the one earlier, so I'll have to go check that out. I have just loved this album. Like I said, I wasn't expecting it to be so catchy and hooky, and I've been listening to it on a loop for several days now. So it's getting burned into my brain. So thank you for such amazing music. I really, really have been enjoying it. It's going to stay in my rotation for quite a while.
You're very kind. Things can be adventurous but fun too. I guess that's kind of the thing.
Exactly. Just because you guys are avant-garde or experimental doesn't mean it's inaccessible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great. Well, much. I really appreciate that.
In the black house when everything matters, Jackson Connick screams about what green. They got a secret so deep, so the story tells it. Give me sleep, give me empty dreams. That's how it was. That's how it was. That's how it was. He was a ball, he was a stone, and Jack's a little rock in the middle, too tight to hold.